Hello, this is Angie. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about case interview frameworks. Framework is the most important fundamental piece of a case interview. It is exactly how the interviewer would know whether you'll be able to make through the case within 5 to 10 minutes. So it is utterly important to get the interview framework right. A framework is essentially a structure or an approach that you lay out. It's essentially the plan in terms of how you're going to approach solving the problem. Yes, it may sound easy, but in reality, it is really difficult because there are so many various business situations, so many different type of business challenges. Everything also seems to be intertwined together. So being able to figure out a framework that is mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive, it is not that easy. Some of you might point out, Angie, there are a ton of framework structures out there. Can I just, memorize them? I mean, you can if you're just a starter, just to trying to get yourself familiarized with the concept. But it is extremely easy for a seasoned interviewer to spot whether you are applying the framework mechanically. Plus, think about it. When you're a consultant, which your clients are paying a lot of money for you, do they want you to apply some sort of framework to their business problem mechanically? No. What they want is a customized framework or approach specific to their business challenges, which is exactly one of the skills that the case interview is testing for. So today, I am going to teach you my secret of how to customize a framework. It is simple, it is easy. You will be able to master it in no time. So how can you do it? So the secret to customize your own framework and ace the case interview in no time is actually really simple. There are only 2 steps to it. 1, familiarize yourself with common buckets of levers for any business cases or situations. 2nd, mix and match based on the particular business situations that you are trying to tackle. What you're seeing here is a case interview prep board that I've made. It has little instructions, which are the 9 buckets, and I'll walk you through some practice case around how you can actually action on it on your own. So I created this board with this new note-taking app called Scrintle. I loved using it because it is a very simple and minimalistic user interface, and it's very easy to start using it. I've published this prep board via Scrintle, so if you want to try out the board, use it to help with your case prep, feel free to use so. In the meantime, also feel free to give Scrintle a try. I've got a 10% discount for about 4 weeks only. So definitely take advantage of this. And if you feel like you don't enjoy the app as much, they have a 7-day money-back guarantee policy, so you can cancel for free within 7 days. All right, without further ado, let's dive into the board and how you can use it. So start off, I have this little welcome section. You can start here for a little tutorial of how you start, but because you're watching the video right now, I'm assuming you can skip this section. And now jump into the secret sauce. These are the common levers that I was talking about. It has market attractiveness, competition, internal capability, profitability, products, customer, risk, and alternatives. Let's dive into each one of it. So what is market attractiveness? Market attractiveness is essentially whether a market, you can segment it however way you want. Maybe it's geography, maybe it's industry, present an attractive opportunity for the business to enter. So when a case is associated with market attractiveness, some of the key questions that you might want to answer, think about are how big is the market in terms of the size, the revenue, the population. You want to enter a market that is big enough potentially to be attractive. What is the growth rate of the market? How quickly is the market supposed to grow from today in like 5 years or 10 years? And what are the market trends, right? What are the key trends that are influencing the market that the business have to be aware of? And then how can you segment the market? As I mentioned before, you can segment it by geographies, by industries, by the type of customer. And you can also intersect those segmentations. So you can have more than one segmentation and you would know exactly how to prioritize your effort. All right, next we have competition. Competition is also extremely important. You want to understand the competitive landscape of the market that you are in or the opportunity. So if competition is relevant for the specific case prompt, the typical question that you might want to answer are, who are the competitors? Who are they? And how big are their market shares? And you also wanted to probably consider how easy or how difficult it is to break into this particular market. What is that barrier to entry? And maybe you are potentially thinking about exiting the market. So what is that difficulty level? You might also wonder how fragmented or consolidated is the competition. Are we looking at, a bunch of different competitors, each take a very small share of the market, or are we looking at, just a few big consolidators that take the majority of the market share? And what are the competitors' strengths and weaknesses? So then you would know what your uniqueness, your strengths are. And if your client is thinking about a particular business action, then you also wanted to think about how your competitors might react to it. Next, we have internal capability. The internal capability is essentially referring to your client's capability required to pursue this new opportunities or market or industry. Again, depends on the case scenario. When it comes to the capability front, some of the questions that you might want to ask is, how is the current performance related capability? Does your client actually have the capability what required to enter this particular market? And what is our uniqueness, right, compared to our competitors? What is our unique competitive advantage? And if we don't have the capability required, how significant is the gap and what are the ones that are missing? And if there are certain overlaps between your internal capability and what's required, what is that synergy? Can you name them? What can we use? How can we better leverage those synergies? Now, moving on to profitability and financials, I kind of bucket them together under profitability. Profitability, money, financials, extremely important. Companies usually are in the business to win a profit. This is what the shareholders, investors, everybody really cares about. So with profitability, you always want to think about revenue, which is the unit price times the quantity. And cost, you can break it down between variables and fixed cost. When it comes to profitability or financials, the typical questions that you want to answer are, what are the various revenue and cost components that make this up? How can you further improve the revenue? Maybe you wanted to look at the pricing strategy again. Maybe you wanted to see how you can further increase the quantity sold. How can you further decrease the cost? Is there any levers that you can pull to either decrease the variable cost, such as labor cost, or your office rental cost, or the fixed cost, right? Equipment, investment, stuff like that. And also, if you are thinking about making an investment, how long would it take for the business to be profitable or to break even? You want to think about that time horizon and then see if it's a time horizon that a business can afford to have. Moving on next, we have a product. It's very straightforward. It's something that the customer would want to buy, either an item or a service. So with product, a few questions you want to think about is, does the current product meet your clients' or customers' pain points or needs? And how does our product compare to our competitor's product? This you can probably also cover under competition, because you probably could be grouped under what are the strengths and weaknesses of your competition, and maybe even under internal capabilities, right? How are we compared to our competitors? What are our uniqueness? And then also, how can you price this product? Pricing conversation is extremely important. So there is a bit of an overlap with revenue and profitability, but you can cover under both, but just don't overlap. And then last but not least, if you're thinking about pushing out a new product, how can you brand or position this new product? Next, we have client, people, your paying customer who are willing to pay money for this particular product and services. You want to think about who your customers are. It is extremely important to understand your client, your customers, and how can you segment them. So for example, you can think about the age, your education level, your geographies, occupation. There's so many ways that you can segment a customer. Take ones that makes the most sense to the business. And what are their needs and pain points, right? People would only pay for things if there is a particular need. So what are these needs? And then link it to the product. Does your product actually cover for those needs or pain points? And what is their willingness to pay? This can also overlap with the pricing discussion, but what a true cost to make a product and your customer's willingness to pay are very different concepts. So you want to understand that perspective as well. And now we have risks. With any business venture, there are always risks associated with it. And risk can come in all sorts of different ways. It can be reputational, legal, regulatory, and or financial. So typical questions that you might want to think about with risk is, what are the specific risks or challenges or roadblocks that you might want to consider? And also, how can you potentially mitigate these risks? What are things that you can do preemptively? And what are the timelines and resources required if you want to think about mitigation? Last but not least, we have alternatives. Yes, in certain case business situations, you might be asked to evaluate one possibility. However, there's always an option B, C, D, and E. So what you want to think about is, suggest your client, what are the other possibilities or opportunities that might be worth considering? If you are evaluating whether to acquire a company, then it might also be worth considering how much would it take to build it. If you're thinking about acquiring company A, but what about company B? Is it a more attractive opportunity? If you're looking into insource, which is build the capability internally, but what about the outsource opportunities in comparison? And because now you're entering the territory of essentially comparing your current opportunity or option with the alternatives, you also want to maybe suggest a comparison framework, right? What are the factors that you need to use to evaluate the alternatives and pick the best one? So now we have gone through the secret sauce, the 8 common buckets that you wanted to familiarize yourself in. Now let's walk you through how you can practice it on a daily basis. Again, with Screentool, I have created this practice space for you. And I have made a template card. So what you can do with each individual case is that you can just copy the card. You can just duplicate the card essentially, and then just put your case prompt here and then put down the answer based on each one of the customized framework. All right, so here what I will do is I'll walk you through 2 practice cases. So you can see how exactly am I leveraging the board and the common buckets or levers to customize the framework. For this, I thought it would be cool if we do a fun little case. I found this on Ben & Company's website. It looks like a pretty interesting case, to be honest, and it's probably something that you could have a real life discussion with your friends if they're interested in opening up a coffee shop. What is the case context? You're having lunch with an old friend from university. She's looking for some business advice because you're so good at it. She's thinking about opening a coffee shop in Cambridge, England, a large university city an hour and a half away from London. She sees potential in this business, but wants your help determine whether opening a coffee shop is a good idea. What do you think? All right, it is a really solid case. I also would want to say that it's actually funny because one of Angie's dreams is to open a coffee shop / a bubble tea shop because I'm obsessed with both. Anyways, what you can do is you can put your case prompt here so you don't have to refer back and forth. And let's blow this up to the board view. All right, so what we are looking here is, okay, this is the best. So now you have a case prompt here that you can use. The problem that you need to solve is whether opening a coffee shop is a good idea. So how can you go ahead and evaluate for your friends? What you can do is go through each one of the card and jot down the thoughts, essentially trying to answer those questions for each one of the cards. And there you will have your customized framework. So let's try that out. Let's start off with market attractiveness. So under market attractiveness, we're essentially trying to figure out whether the coffee shop market is attractive enough in Cambridge. So how big is the coffee market in Cambridge, right? So some of the problems you might want to consider here is how big is the coffee market in Cambridge? Is it sizable? How many people actually live there? And how many of them are coffee drinkers? Some hypothesis that you can already throw out here is it's probably a pretty good sizable market. It's probably attractive because it's also close to a large university. So you're guaranteed to always have a supply of coffee drinkers. And from what I remember from university days, yes, I drank coffee like it was water. Growth rate of this market, you can probably ignore. What are the market trends? Can probably also ignore. I mean, coffee is a pretty standardized product. And then how you can segment the market itself. The coffee market is probably by the type of client, customers, which you can get to in a little bit. All right, so market attractiveness is good. Now let's look into the competition. So with competition, you want to understand who are you comparing against, right? So you have your coffee shop. So who are the potential competitors to the coffee shop? Maybe other coffee shops. It can be something that's like more, it can be more of a chain like Starbucks versus like, by a local person like your friend. choices to coffee. So maybe some sort of tea shop, a bubble tea shop can all be the competitors. It's probably relatively easy to start a coffee shop. Actually, in terms of the potential competitors, I want to say that this is probably a pretty competitive market because you have your Starbucks chains, you have your local cafes, you have your potentially bubble tea places or high tea or English high tea places that people go to pretty often. In terms of how easy or difficult, it's probably pretty easy to start a coffee shop and easy to exit as well. So to start a coffee shop, probably need a lease, you probably need some like coffee machines and stuff, but it's not rocket science. And if it becomes too much, it probably is also pretty easy to exit. You can just return the lease and sell all your equipment and stuff. So it's not too bad. The coffee shop market itself, my hypothesis is that it's probably pretty fragmented, right? Because, if I were to remember when I visited Cambridge, there are essentially coffee shops every other block. There are so many just sort of everywhere because probably everyone is attracted by the university student population as their client. How are the competitors' strength and weakness and how well they react to it? We can probably skip it. Strength and weaknesses, this is something that's more related to maybe the decor of coffee shop, but that's kind of, I feel like in a way that's a bit outside of the conversation of whether whether it's a good idea to open a coffee shop. So I'll skip that. And now we're looking to capability. All right, we're looking to capability. So from a capability perspective, that's essentially your friend's own capability to actually open a coffee shop to make coffee. So does she make coffee right now? Can she hire? Right, so I think for a cafe, what's really, really important is to actually make a good drink. So has your friend taken any barista classes? Is she a good barista herself? All of those are very important to consider. And how is she in terms of the business sense? Again, you're opening a new business, so you probably have to handle the financials, the renovations, the interior decorations. So like, what is that business sense that your friends have? Now we're looking at profitability. So with profitability, it is actually really important, right? Because one of the big things is whether opening a coffee shop is a good idea. So we need to advise your friend to think about how much would it cost to open a coffee shop? How much can you make every day? Yeah, so how much would it cost, right? If you're thinking about the fixed costs, you're buying the chairs, you're buying the machines, you're buying a lot of the interior decorations. Those are all cost. And then when it comes to variable, you want to think about lease cost, you want to think about maybe the utilities, and you want to maybe think about, people you're going to hire to make coffees. And then in terms of how much your friend can make, this is where you can probably go do a little estimate of the revenue. How much do you think you can sell each coffee drink for? I know a standard coffee is probably $2-3, and then when you get into the more fancy milk drink category, you can look into probably like $5-6. But how many people would actually be willing to go in to your coffee shop to buy it, and how long would you open for every morning or every day? Those are all important components that would go into your revenue calculation. And how long would it take to break even? Are we talking about 10 years or are we talking about a year and a half, right? Those time horizons are extremely important. You don't want to always be in a sort of a deficit area. So this is a really important conversation to have to talk to your friends about. Now we're looking into product. Product itself, in my opinion, is not very relevant to the question, which is whether open a coffee shop is a good idea. So I'm gonna go ahead and just skip this one. From a customer's perspective, I think this is okay to have. So you want to think about who you're targeting, right? Is it the college, the university students? Is it professors? Or is it the local residents that are nearby? What is that sort of age demographic that we're looking at? And then based on the various demographic, that you can think about, what are the things that you can do to further market out your coffee shop. I want to say in this scenario, yeah, you can consider it, but it might not be a top consideration because again, there are so many coffee shops, they're probably just targeting everyone. Next, we're looking at risks. So from a risk perspective, yes, open a coffee shop is a high risk venture. Probably depends on your friend's sort of like financial situation. So what are some of the potential risks that you can encounter? There might be issues with the lease, or you might not be able to get a good location, or maybe there's issue with the cost because recently, the interest rate have been really going up. So if your friend can still afford to take out a loan with this high interest rate situation, and what can your friend potentially do, right, to mitigate those risks? And then last but not least, we have alternatives. In my opinion, it's also not super relevant here because the idea is whether opening a coffee shop is a good idea. So in my opinion, this factor is not as important as the other one. So I'm going to go ahead and skip. All right, there we go. So based on what we have here, we actually have a pretty good list, a pretty good, I want to say, customized framework. So if I were to actually organize in a way to answer it in a case interview, I would do the following. So in order to answer the question, help my friend evaluate whether opening a coffee shop is a good idea. First of all, we wanted to look at the attractiveness of opening a coffee shop in Cambridge. How big is essentially the overall market in Cambridge? Is it a sizable, does Cambridge have a sizable population? How many people are there and how many people are coffee drinkers? Those are all really important factors to consider. And the second, we want to also understand the competitions that my friend might need to face, right? When it comes to coffee shops, there are probably a ton of coffee shops in Cambridge already. She's probably not the first one. So we wanted to think about, what are the other coffee shops, whether it's a chain like a Starbucks or whether it's like a local coffee shop that people usually go to already. And also, what are the alternative choices to coffee? I know myself, I love drinking bubble tea. And also I know that there is a huge tea drinking culture in the UK. So what are the alternative choices to coffee and how many are already there? It's probably pretty easy to start a coffee shop. Relatively, it's not rocket science. And if things not go well, it's probably pretty easy to exit, just sell everything and return the lease. So from a sort of a risk perspective, that's pretty low. And it's also a pretty fragmented market. So I want to say that it's probably going to be hard to have like a group of loyal customers, but it's definitely doable. Next, we wanted to talk about my friend's ability to actually open this coffee shop, although this is a bit of a less relevant area. When we talk about the coffee shop capability, we want to think about, does my friend actually make coffee now? Is she a good barista herself? If not, does she have access to a network to hire a really good barista? Because I think that's really the key of opening a coffee shop. And how is my friend in terms of the business sense perspective? You need to run financials, numbers, all that sort of stuff to make sure that you're running a successful business. So, and then we also wanted to think about the financials. Again, I think my friend is attracted by the potential. So understanding how long it would take for her to break even is really important. In this area, we want to talk about, what's the cost associated with opening a coffee shop? Can she actually afford opening one, or does she have to take loans? And how much money can she actually make on a daily basis to then understand how long would it take for her to break even? Customer, this is an area where, like, in a way, it's a little bit less, actually customer is a bit less relevant here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and delete this one. And last but not least, I wanted to talk about risk with my friends. There's a ton of risk in terms of opening a coffee shop in Cambridge. It might be because of the competition. There are already a lot of coffee shops in the area, so it might be really hard to attract new people to come to your coffee shop. And then there might be a risk from a financial perspective as the interest has been growing really high. She might actually not be able to get a good loan or make enough money to actually cover the interest payment every month. So those are all the areas that I want to think about. Ta-da! It is really easy and straightforward, right? Let's compare our answer to Bain's answer and then see. So here the simple questions are: how big is the opportunity? How much does it cost? What is the go-to-market strategy? Okay, honestly, very similar to what we have already covered here. I think I want to say that we did a really good job. And what you can see, which is, in my opinion, really cool, is because I have made notes, essentially linking my answer to the various card, so you can very easily see the relationship between the case and the card. And over time, you will be able to kind of sort of spot a pattern and then know more intuitively what are the buckets that might be more relevant for a particular type of case. And then you will be able to answer a lot faster instead of going through each one of the 8 buckets individually. All right, as you start practicing case structures with my board, you'll probably encounter some issues that I want to make sure that you're aware of. First of all, answers being too generic. Yes, in my board, I used generic words such as market, customer, product, and you might be tempted to use the exact word in your answer. That is okay if you are a beginner. However, if you do want to get into really top consulting companies, one thing that you can do to further customize it is by adding customized words or adding context to your answer. So for example, instead of saying market, you can say the cosmetic market. By adding those additional descriptions, you're effectively customizing the framework even further, and you will definitely get brownie points for it. And the second issue that you might notice is that it seems that in some scenarios, all of the various buckets would apply to a single case. That is okay, and it could happen where in the more complicated cases, you do have to consider all the various scenarios. You can still start off by listing out all the 8 or 9 buckets that you think are relevant. And after you list it all, make sure that you go through an exercise of prioritizing or eliminating. Leverage your common sense, leverage your business acumen to only pick out the ones that you think are most likely to be the issue or would worth more investigation. This is the same approach that we use in consulting as well. We use a hypothesis-driven approach. In the beginning, you want to be as exhaustive as possible, but based on the 80-20 rule, you know that 80% of the problem is probably driven by 20% of the issue. So take a guess, make some assumptions, and narrow down the 20% of the issue that you're going to further drill down. And then slowly over time, you will realize the pattern, and then it will be more easily to immediately pick out the levers, the buckets that are most relevant to the case. All right, let's try out another one. So I come across this, actually this is created by ChatGPT, which is really useful. I'll have another video that talks about how you can practice case with ChatGPT, but here, this is another case prompt. So our client is a large multinational consumer electronics company based in the US. They have a diverse portfolio, including smartphones, laptops, tablets, wearables. Recently, they have noticed a decline in its market share for smartphones, particularly in the high-end segment. The CEO is concerned about this trend and have approached us for help in understanding the reason. So understand the reason and develop a strategy to regain the market share in the high-end smartphone segment. Okay, so this is very important. So my task is to identify the key issue and recommend a course of action for the clients to regain its competitive advantage in the high-end smartphone market. So first we have market attractiveness. So in this area, what we want to maybe understand is in the high-end smartphone market is high-end smartphone. What are the overall trends? Is it possible that overall this market is shrinking because of other development in the overall electronics market, and that's why the company is seeing a decline on their side as well? How are we looking in terms of the growth trend of the overall smartphone market, right? So what are the things that we need to understand a little bit better? Really important question to answer. And then quickly go into the competition. Competition is really important. So we want to understand how are our competitors doing. Are they also experiencing the same decline? Are they actually getting market share from us? Are our client actually moving from purchasing our product to our competitor's product? A lot of the other stuff are actually not that relevant at this point. And then internal capabilities, at this point, I want to say for this particular case, not very relevant. You can just probably assume that because they have been in the space for so long, they have the capability to produce really good high-end phones. Profitability, it could be very interesting to look into. Profitability or financials. So here we're looking at decline market share. Which part of it is actually declining, right? So with market share, it's usually associated with the revenue piece, and we're looking at unit price and quantity. So is it the price of the high-end smartphone is actually overall declining, or are we actually seeing fewer units of the smartphone actually being sold through our clients? Really important to understand to sort of narrow down the root cause. Now we're looking at the product itself. This is also a very interesting one to look into, right? So we need to match the product with our customers. So I think I want to talk about those hand in hand together. So who are the customers that we're targeting? Are those the high-end, high-income populations? Where are they based? Are they based in Asia, in Europe, in North America? And then what are their needs with high-end smartphones? This is what I want to understand in terms of do they actually have a willingness to pay? Do they actually have unmet needs? And then how are these needs, or actually how are our smartphone fit in these needs, right? Is it possible that their needs demands have changed over the course of time? We haven't updated our product to actually make sure that we meet our client's pain point, right? And then how are our competitors' products in terms of meeting the clients? If there's some sort of technological advances that we haven't been able to make, and that's why it's causing the clients to switch. And then we're looking at risks and alternatives. To be honest, I feel like those two areas are not very relevant in this case in terms of understanding the reason for the decline. So I'll go ahead and skip it. So there we go. In under probably a couple minutes, I'm able to already have a pretty good and sizable framework. So we're looking at essentially 4 different areas. We're looking at the overall attractiveness of the high-end smartphone. Is it recently declining because maybe people are switching more to smart watches or to just regular cell phones? And then in terms of competition, how are our competitors doing? Are they actually growing, or are they actually experiencing the same level of decline? What are they doing that's different? How actually are they reacting to this trend? And then we're looking at the financials, right? When we talk about decline market share, we want to understand which part of the market is actually declining. Is it the price that we can charge from our clients, or is it the quantities of the high-end market, that high-end smartphones that we're selling? And then, last but not least, wanted to look into the product and customer needs match. Is who are the customers that we are actually targeting? Is there a particular area of clients that we're actually losing more rapidly than others? What are their needs? And are their needs currently being met by our product? How are our product compared to our competitors' product in terms of meeting their needs? So all of those are really important factors. And voila, that is the answer. Yeah. And what you can see here is a very cool visual in terms of how the different cards are related to a particular case of the problem. In this case, it's more of an evaluation of business opportunity. This one is more around understanding a trend decline. So over time, you'll be able to kind of see, what are the common things that you can think about for a particular type of case. And this is how you can find the formula yourself. Yep, that's the 2 examples I'm going to cover today. As you can see, it's also a very cool visual. I love just dragging it everywhere. And then you can see how different buckets usually tie up to a different type of problem or business scenario. And over time, you'll be able to spot the trends, and then instead of going through each one of it individually, you will be able to just pick and choose the ones that are most relevant. Another reason why I love Scrintle and the visualization of it. It just makes the case prep so much easier. What's also really cool is here I have 2 cards, but you can add as many cards as you want onto this board, so you can just keep accumulating, and then everything is essentially in one place. So if you ever want to go back and revisit some of the cases, do a little bit of review yourself, or even sort of looking at the overall relationship and spot the trends, it's all in one place. It's very easy to organize it. So I hope you have fun with it, and I hope this is going to be helpful. Remember, I have the link to the board down below, and you can enjoy a 10% discount if you do like to use or try out Scrintle, and they do have a 7-day free cancellation policy for a peace of mind. All right, I hope that you found the content helpful. If you like this video, you should check out my other video where I talked about how I improved my case interview success rate by over 90%. Until next time, bye!